I didn't trust the masculine, I didn't trust the feminine, and I really didn't trust in life. I was fully chosen really for the first time in my life, and then ultimately bring us into a greater level of intimacy, trust, and depth.
It was a combination of the right person at the right time, and then the full willingness to just do whatever it takes to make it work.
I'm happy to be with myself. And if that means I'll just have lovers in my life and I'll never have that kind of a relationship, I will be so okay with me.
Here I am, still here. Hi.
Can we hold sacred union and also the value of these other relationships or partnerships? I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of This Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed. And I want you to have your own magical journey in your own way that takes you from wherever you are now to the most outrageous and true and beautiful expression of sex, love, and relationships that is available to you. It is my honor to be here today with Aubrey Marcus and Vylana Marcus. They are most dear to my heart as a couple because they have come together in sacred union and stand for the beauty, erotic power, and eternal truth of what marriage can be between two souls who are a full fuck yes to their journey together. They are the creators of the program From Solo to Sacred Union, and they share so much of their wisdom and journey with so much truth, so much power, so much vulnerability, and so much courage regularly on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. As I have experienced their love, it has unlocked doorways of possibility and truth inside of me. It has given me the courage to go for the level of partnership that I knew existed in my soul and needed to see in full multicolored reality to go all the way for what I wanted for myself. In this way, I hope they can inspire you in your current partnership or whatever you are looking for to go for absolute gold because of the transmission that they are embodying and bringing into reality together.
Triple gold.
Triple gold, baby!
Go, baby.
Triple gold is my word for sacred union because it was the way that I was able to express to people in my previous partnership with a triple gold man, our actual alchemy. I was like, look, if it was the Olympics, we'd have a bronze medal. And like, bronze is really good. And most people never medal. They're like 14th place in like Bulgarian World Championships or whatever.
Still
and
good.
People are like, yeah, how could you leave a bronze medal? And I was like, because I was built for triple gold.
Triple gold. Yes, indeed. Go for the win.
You know, and I actually want to open with a story as we're going to discuss your sacred union, your journey together, the work you did individually and together to be in this partnership, what it is to be in sacred union, and also what it means to be divine masculine in sacred union, choosing this, and the work that you have done and had to do to be able to allow a partnership of this level and a man of this level into your life. And, you know, so something I want to tell you is that when you made the podcast about your union, I was still in my previous 8.5-year partnership, and I started to listen to that podcast. And you were talking about being full fuck yes, right? And you even tell the story of, you know, almost going down a path with a woman that you were like a yes to, and it was, you were pretty into it. And your friend Benjamin was like, man, there is full fuck yes. And it like inspired you. You were like, okay, it's that or nothing. So I was listening to your podcast, talking about your love, how you came together, your like ketamine journey, all of that. And I like slowly hit pause on the podcast and slid my phone across the couch. And I was like, that's not real. I was like, that's not fucking real. I was like, they're whatever. It's limerence. It's honeymoon phase. Like this is irresponsible of them to be talking about this so soon. Aubrey should know better. He's a teacher. And the story that I had to tell myself, again, I was with a triple gold man, but our alchemy was not all the way full fuck yes. And I knew in my deep heart of hearts, I knew in my soul that what you two were sharing was what I was made for, what I wanted more than anything else. And I knew that I wasn't choosing it, that I was letting the moments and days and years go by in something less than that. And I can't judge anyone else's relationship dharma, right? I had the woman who does my eyebrows, like I was telling her this and she was like, me and my husband are a solid 8 out of 10. And she like said it with this like certitude that like that was her life path. And I was like, good on you for celebrating that, you know? And I was like, all right, I know though that like I want triple gold in this lifetime. And so I like looked at the phone and I was like, well, you can keep telling yourself the story for the rest of your life that every other couple is secretly unhappy, that no one has full fuck yes, that no one actually has sacred union, that they're all fucking lying on Instagram. They're definitely lying on the podcast right now. And I was like, or you can hit play on the phone, walk your dog, and let it take you back into truth. And that's what I did. And that sense of that exists. And I don't know if I can have it in this lifetime. Like, I don't know, but I would rather die trying than spend the rest of my life telling myself that it isn't real. So what I love about you two is that you are an undeniable living experience that sacred union is real. Can you please tell me more about that?
Well, let's go back to that story you alluded to, which is Benjamin Becker, Azria Becker, and B, as I call him, as he's my friend. He said to me, and this was when I was in my polyamorous journey, and I was with a paramour that was really, really good. You know, she was amazing actually in many ways. And he looked at me and he's like, well, is it a full fuck yes? I was like, well, I don't know, man. I mean, like but it's really good though. And I explained all the reasons. He's like, that's not a full fuck yes. Full fuck yes is just full. And I was like, I don't think that thing exists, man. And he's like, yes, it does. So I was just like you, honestly. I was like, yeah, but there's always going to be the yeah, but. And then there wasn't a yeah, but anymore. Then there was Vylana. And I had an intuition that might be the case with Vylana. But Vylana was in another partnership and she wasn't ever really willing to look at me to actually see if that was going to be a reality. So I was like, well, maybe with Vylana, but she's preoccupied and I don't even know if this is real. And I don't know if it's real with Vylana because it hasn't happened yet. But then when this opened up, I was like, damn, B, you were right, man. You were right.
Yeah.
There is a full fuck yes moment. And it's a full fuck yes moment that's a yes that transcends space and time. It transcends that honeymoon limerence and includes all of that energy that you know will exist, that will be there, but it's something else that's fundamentally there. And that's what we were able to find.
Yeah. And it felt like it was interesting really early on. You know, we had our first date before we were even sexually intimate with each other. And I remember showing up to the house and, you know, this was during COVID or like right at the beginning of COVID. And so I just went over to his house. We got all dressed up. He was in a full suit just in the house and made dinner for us. It was very sweet. And when I got there and we hugged each other, I could feel that he would be my husband. And I never, you know, I am a child from divorce, and a lot of my wounding and trauma that I've had to heal over the years has been from that split in my family. And so I, you know, proclaimed to myself that I would never do that to my children. So I didn't really know myself if I actually even believed in marriage, you know, not even the idea of what a sacred union is, but just the fact, there's the commitment to somebody that you know that you can hold no matter what. I never felt that ever in my life. And I felt it immediately here. And it was just like it just was a knowing, and the magnetism that was there. It was like, it literally was like two magnets that you just like, everything was just like pulling us together. And it just felt like a full fuck yes from the start. And it's really interesting because it felt like you can do your best to describe it. It's kind of like when people haven't been to Burning Man, but you describe to them Burning Man, you're like, here's all the pictures and, people wear costumes and there's art and all this stuff. But until you walk out on the playa that first night and you're in a totally different planet, you don't have the gnosis of what it feels like. And this is just something that it's so different than any love that I have ever experienced. And it's interesting because that limerence and the honeymoon phase hasn't ended. Like people love to really say that, especially in the beginning, which is fair, but it feels like things continue to get deeper and more expansive and better and better and better. Yeah.
And it's not that force of initial intoxication with that attraction and that new relationship energy. It's not that it wasn't there. I think I shared on the podcast that we were having sex in the aisles of airplanes, and we were like, we were wild. Like we just could not physically separate ourselves from each other. And now, we still have that energy, but there's a kind of a settled patience with it. It's not that the excitement's not there, but it's not like we have to rush to go do it because it's almost like we're afraid this will never happen again. Like we might not have another chance. We're like, no. We'll go slow. We're going to carve out 8 hours to make love on Wednesday. And that's all we're going to do for 8 hours. But until then, we got a lot of work. I got 4 podcasts. You got 3 things to do. You got 7 sound healings. And we'll try to get it in. We'll love each other. But that 8 hours though, and I'll see you there, baby. And I fucking can't wait. And it'll actually draw me through the week. Yeah. Like recently we had an experience where I needed to produce a first draft of my next upcoming book. And so Vylana left me alone in isolation, and then she was going to come meet me, and we were going to have an experience, this erotic experience that she was going to cultivate, and we were going to cultivate together. And so as I sat down to write, and writing a book is difficult. You have to really push past a lot of resistance, but I could see that shimmering, illuminating moment when we were going to come together and have this erotic evening together. And it was like, I am going to write like no one has ever written before. I'm going to write this book. And oh yeah, by the way, there's going to be some poetry on the side, because that's how fired up I am about this experience. And that's how allured I am to this goddess right here. Like it's going to draw the very best out of me. And that's the beauty of it, is it allures, it evokes the best of you. That's what a relationship at its highest does. It draws out your best quality.
Yeah. I would love to hear from both of you, even though I hear you say like you can't really describe it. Like it's trying to describe Burning Man, but it's still love for you to try and describe for everyone. What is sacred union to you? Because it's a word that a lot of people haven't heard or used before. And how is that different from a relationship or like a marriage as we think of it traditionally?
Well, you can say everything is sacred, and you're actually right? Like everything is sacred.
Yeah.
But then that actually makes the word a little bit meaningless if you say everything is sacred. But it's true. Everything is sacred. The most sacred thing is what is. Yes, that's all true. So you have to understand the language. But when you declare sacred union, that actually means that there is something that you're declaring is different in some way, and special in some way. And it's not that it's separate from the field. It is connected to the field of all sacred things. But in relating, this is the sacred thing. And the sacred thing means to me that what is sacred? Well, the sacred is the wholeness of who you are, wants this, desires this, and wants to actually hold this more than anything else. So if it comes to anything else in the whole universe, that you have to fold every other card that single ace, like you're playing draw poker and you have an ace, you can fold all 4 of your other cards. You can fold every other card to the ace, which is the sacred union. And that's the only thing that matters. So if all the money goes away, all the friends go away, all of the other things go away, everything goes away. This is the last thing that you'll ever fold. And you won't ever fold it. It'll actually, your body will have to fold because it'll be stepping over your dead body to let this go.
Yeah.
And like, that's that type of passion and intensity and bond that this is evoking. And it, of course, it sounds unrealistic because you look at divorce statistics and you look at the way lots of people think that, and when we were going to get married, I had all of my attorneys were like, you better get a prenup. You're about to sell on it. This is a big deal. I was like, no, no, I'm not. There's nothing there. If in this catastrophic timeline, which to me seemed like the same timeline of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It's like Armageddon comes, fucking fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. If this thing breaks, the whole cosmos breaks for me. So I don't give a fuck. So we're not going to have a prenup. Like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
But why? Why did I feel that comfortable to be all in? The reason I felt that comfortable is I trusted that Vylana would go into the deep with me. That wherever we ran into trouble, whatever was coming up, we would go in together and we would figure it out. It was the faith that not only that she had what I wanted now, but that she would keep looking and I would keep looking no matter what.
Yeah.
And we would get there no matter what. So even if the problem presented itself, we would find a solution together.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that was articulated so beautifully, and another aspect to kind of touch on of the way that I view our sacred union, other than it is the beacon of everything, as you said, where all other cards fold, no matter what. Like, this is the number one priority for our eros to be intact, for there to be the expansiveness and the depth in our sexual communion and intimacy. And for also, a big part of it that I see is really, really important is that we are facing in the same direction, hand in hand, with the same mission to do whatever we can for the good of all, to be of service to the greatest good, to shift the paradigms on this planet, to do what we came here to do. It is our soul dharma, and we do it together. And we're looking out at the same horizon in the same way. So it's like, we have our own sovereign things that we do in life. He has his podcasts and he writes books, and I do sound healing and music and, just different artistic expressions. But everything that we do is together and looking out at the same horizon. And I think that's a really important aspect of it as well.
So what Vylana is describing is the third level of relating, which we actually talk about in our course From Solo to Sacred Union. It's the whole mate level. So I'll briefly cover this. Role mate is the first level, and that's each of us fulfill different roles. We provide different resources for the relationship. We both serve each other in our own ways. We try to find reciprocity in the roles that we serve. Soulmate, I look deeply into her eyes. She looks deeply into mine. We don't flinch. We go through all of the challenges. We could be in a room together for a year straight and just continue to peer deeply inside of each other. And then wholemate is what she's talking about, is that third level of relating, which unlocks sacred union, is to have a shared horizon. And to think about that, imagine that, think about the Fellowship of the Ring, for those who are familiar, right? They had a shared horizon. There was Sauron, and there was the two towers, and there was a great darkness that was coming over the world. Would any one of those in the Fellowship be like, yeah, Gandalf, I'm not really feeling our friendship right now, bro. Like, whatever, man. Like, I'm gonna do my thing. No, hell no, they wouldn't do that, because they saw how important it was for the wizards and the dwarves and the elves and everybody to come together. Now, that's not a romantic context, but that was a sacred fellowship. That was a sacred union between them when they're like, we're doing this thing together.
Yeah.
And it fucking matters.
Yes.
And that thing, I think, is really essential for sacred union to really be there, because that's what puts you to the place where you're unfuckable.
Mm. Mm. So I have a question about the full fuck yes, because I think for people listening, I know it's something that I've wondered is there's a full fuck yes to doing this, right? But does that mean that you're a full fuck yes to every single part of each other? Like, is it like, wow, we're just like a puzzle piece that like fits so incredibly perfectly? Or have there been things that are difficult and challenging, but the full fuck yes transcends that? Like, did you just find the absolute perfect person and that's where the yes comes from? Or does the yes bring you through the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel that it's both in different ways. It's like a spectrum, and it's very nuanced, because I think early on that was one of the things that we said. It's like, there's like a lotto ticket and you have 100 numbers and like all of our numbers are matching. And, that's been fucking extraordinary. And also because of the commitment that we are making to this sacred union, everything that is not in resonance with that has had to come up and out. So we have faced a number of challenges and difficulties in, being in the position where we are always choosing each other no matter what. Like we've gotten into places that were, sort of that happened because of a lot of my wounding that was not resolved, that was unresolved, particularly just my mistrust. I trusted as much as I had the capacity to him, since we've been together, but because of, all of the betrayal that I've experienced in former relationships, like I wanted to trust him so bad, but I just wasn't fully capable of doing that. And so we went through a season where that was a point of contention and something that we really had to work on a lot, even though my mind is like, everything that is here in front of me is trustable and loyal and reverent and worthy and patient with my process and, the dream of what I could even imagine in a man. And yet I still was having, triggers around certain things because I didn't trust the masculine, I didn't trust the feminine, and I really didn't trust in life. And so we got to some very difficult conversations where we had to choose, like one thing that he would always come forward with is, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I have no outs. So whatever it is that we have to do, we're going to do it. And maybe it's going to be really difficult for a while because it was painful to feel so in love and so close with each other and to just feel that separation in those moments. Like it was deeply, deeply painful for both of us. But that was his response to me, is like, it's not even an idea in my mind that there is another way. I'm not going anywhere. And for me to feel that sense of safety where I was fully chosen really for the first time in my life was ultimately what helped to heal all of those parts of myself through a series of different things, and then ultimately bring us into a greater level of intimacy, trust, and depth, So it doesn't feel like it's just, we come together and everything's all in alignment and everything's perfect. Like we're constantly going through cycles and seasons of, becoming more free because of what we face in our relationship. And this has been, I would say, heavier on my end of things that I have had to really move through and process. But it's all been part of it. There's a teaching that our teacher, Rabbi Mark Gaffney, talks about where there are cycles in relationship always. And, the first cycle is like, you're just in this limerence, like, oh my God, I love you. Everything is perfect. You are everything I've ever dreamed of. And then you get to a point where you get into a moment of separation where it's like, oh, well, you're not what I'm projecting onto you as my perfect ideal, or this thing hurt really bad, or I feel wounded around this. And you get into, that moment of division and separation, which is painful. But to know that that's like the tragic phase. And then the the post-tragic phase is this sweetness where when you move through that together and you come out on the other side, your level of intimacy is greater than it was before you started. And that knowing that moving through those cycles is just a part of being in relationship, in any relationship, not just sacred union, but that's been a really helpful tool for
to kind of reiterate that frame that she's discussing. So that limerence phrase, you would call that the pre-tragic, the first innocence, where you actually can't even see the faults in the other person. Everything is intoxicating and exciting, and this overwhelming eros and passion and love and desire is overriding everything. So everything is funny, everything is sexy, and you're in just this moment. And so in that first innocence, you're pre-tragic. You haven't actually understood the complexities of the traumas and whether they're ancestral from this life, the wounding that you're going to experience, then that comes up. And then you're in the tragic. And that's the stage of where you start to figure out, all right, this is mine, this is yours, this is what we got to work on. But to know that there's a third stage that you can arrive at, which is the post-tragic, so it's pre-tragic, tragic, and then post-tragic, which is the second innocence, which is the sweetness, a sweetness that's even sweeter than the first sweetness, because it's included and assimilated all of the wisdom and challenge and darkness and crunchy parts of that tragic phase where you encounter all the trauma and challenge, and then you just love and appreciate each other more for having been on that journey together.
I want to share with you all about Play. So these are our sexy supplements from our brand new company, Mood. And these are custom formulations designed to get you results in your nervous system from daily use. So you take Play every single day. And what it is designed to do, we worked with a team of all female scientists, is to get you out of your head and into the pleasure of your body. So if you know the feeling of like working all day long, I know this feeling, getting off and being like, Layla, do yoga. Layla, make out with your partner. Layla, like, do something, go be in nature. And as I'm just like scrolling on Instagram, one of the things that was so helpful that I learned was that it can take up to 2 hours to shift from sympathetic state, go, into a deep parasympathetic relaxation where you would actually like want to make out with someone. So this formulation is designed to help you make that switch. It does it by giving your body a natural high and a feeling of deep pleasure. It uses things like cacao flavonoids, sacred lotus, mucuna pruriens, which helps support your dopaminergic system, which increases your desire to do things, to engage with the world. And it even has this amazing plant called Kana, which is a heart opener. So when you feel good in your body, rushes of pleasure, when you feel a heart opening, you want to connect, you want to be more intimate. So as you take this over time, it's going to help you want more sex. It's going to help you be more playful in your life. It's going to help you do more awesome things. I personally love taking this formula before the gym. I love taking it before yoga, and I absolutely love taking it before making love. You can combine it with Sex Magic, our other incredible product. You can find out more over at shopmood.com. We've got a special discount code for you as a listener of this podcast. It is this Tantric Life 15. This Tantric Life 15. You pop it in at checkout in the discount code section. It'll give you 15% off your first order. So you can head over to shopmood.com, get yourself some Play, and it comes in both supplements, so just capsules you can pop every day, and this beautiful velvet chocolatey flavor that I like to mix into almond milk and have in the afternoon as a kind of lovely, luscious pick-me-up.
So when I've heard you two talk before, there's a part of me, I'm sure I can imagine a lot of women thinking like, well, you just found the perfect husband, right? Like he does, like you're saying he doesn't have, like you had more stuff to work through than him. And you've described that you had like a pretty good childhood. Your mom unconditionally loved you.
On the feminine side, especially. Yeah.
On the feminine side.
Very, very blessed.
Which really helps. Like if you have a great relationship with your mom, and then he's like fully chosen you, like you've never been chosen before. Right. So, so I have two questions about this. The first is going to be, how did you go from so much polyamory, right, that so many of us followed you with, and enough kind of lack of full fuck yes that you didn't even know that this level existed? Like, did you do work? Did you shift? Or did it just come into your life and you were like, okay, yes. Like, how did that work for you?
There was an evolution of myself that was happening. And I think part of some aspect of me was that there was a stallion that just needed to run.
Yeah.
And I needed to learn about myself and learn about who I was by how I was reflected in the many faces of many goddesses.
Yeah.
And I really needed that for a long time, And so while while I don't think any of the people that I was with was a Vylana, was the right person, but also I wasn't in that exact right phase.
Yeah.
Like I was still learning myself reflected in many different mirrors
Yeah.
and learning about women in many different ways and myself in many different ways. So that season had to come to fruition. Now, I didn't think that there ever was a Vylana. I mean, again, I had an instinct as soon as I met her that Vylana could be the Vylana.
Yeah.
But but I wasn't sure. So I was actually fairly content to kind of, how Frankenstein was a amalgam of many different beings.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to Frankenstein monster together my Vylana with many different partners.
Yeah.
This one will be amazing at this. This one I'll go to journeys with. This one I'll go to dance parties with. This one will have intense erotic charge with this. And I was like, this is probably going to be my way. And I'd resigned myself to that.
Yeah.
Although there was this one flickering question mark, like in Mario World, there's like a question mark over the thing and you just got to bump your head into it to see what it is. And that was Vylana. Because as soon as I met her, there was just something in my knowing that was like, I don't know about this one. This one seems like an anomaly to my whole worldview.
Yeah.
So the question that's interesting is if I would have met the Vylana earlier, before the stallion had run, before I had seen myself reflected in so many different million faces of the goddess, would I have been ready and would she have been ready? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It could have actually imploded.
Yeah.
We could have actually gotten so messy and so lost in the tragic, we might not have made it to the post-tragic. So timing, not only person, but timing played a really important role and should not be underestimated, the importance of the timing of us coming together. And it was an older timeline for me. I was 39, when that timeline was really ripe. And Vylana, what? You were 33?
32.
32.
Yeah.
So that timeline was, it took a while to ripen for us to get to the level where we could withstand the waves and not break. Like there's never been one moment, because a previous pattern of mine when I wasn't sure is I would bounce. But in this relationship, I've never bounced. And, I look back at all those other relationships. It was like, man, like how could I have created this sense of safety when I was always 1 foot out the door? Oh, you're going to show me that side of thing. You're going to project this thing on me. Well, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
And then expect that the relationship was going to heal. Like, no way. Like that wasn't possible. So it was a combination of the right person at the right time and then the full willingness to just do whatever it takes to make it work and the desire to do that, not out of obligation, but because we want it.
Yeah. So the follow-on question that I was talking about, right? And this definitely intersects with my own questioning in my world and my interactions is like, is there space then to grow into each other? If you're not at that perfect timing, if you haven't done that level of work where it's just like, shoom, do you hold space in this sacred union framework for, like what if you did meet Vylana 6 years earlier and you were in and out and she was less integrated and had more projections and trauma? Like, is there a world in which you get there together? And can the full fuck yes emerge out of that? Or do we think that's always just hopeful thinking and staying in something? Because I think also, it begs the question of like, do you always just leave? It's not a full fuck yes. Or can you do work and reveal a full fuck yes?
Such a good question.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's coming up for me, and it's sort of, it's coming to me because of my own process of how I arrived to this in the first place, is I think that if you are doing the inner work to be like a truly sovereign being that has so much self-approval, self-love, acceptance, a connection to the depth of your desires, your needs, your boundaries. Like if you are that deeply intimate with yourself, your beacon of what is in resonance with you and what is not becomes very clear. And so I don't know that I can, because I haven't experienced that firsthand, you know, I can't really say. I sense that because of how I know us, because I know both of our hearts, because I know how we both show up to communicate things. Like, I mean, there was a lot of messiness in the beginning. I mean, I was like still, you know, sort of fracturing off my own collie expression that would get, you know, rageful and a little eviscerating and, you know, not
a little.
A little
as
wow.
my entrails were spread across the ground. A little.
Yeah. No, like that expression was also there. I had not transcended, and not necessarily that you need to. I learned how to work with it in different ways, but I do believe that because of what this is, because of our like connection and almost the weaving of the dharma of our souls, I do feel that we would have found our way because there's just something different. It's almost like and I don't know that it works this way, but it feels like a lock and key. There are particular codes and things that have opened for me in the presence of him, even when we've been through a lot of difficult stuff. And, you know, had it been 6 years earlier, I would have missed the worst years of trauma of my life if we got together 6 years earlier, you know, and we would have been different people then. But I personally do believe that we still would have ended up together. And I also entirely have always trusted the timing because there was a part of me, as he mentioned, you know, in the period where we were very good friends, that wasn't willing to fully look at the possibility. Like I just completely shut it down for my own reasons. I felt it, you know, kind of perk up in a number of instances and then just very quickly kind of closed it off again. And it was just, you know, when I, because I had become so intimate with myself through all of the contrast of all the kinds of relationships that I didn't want, through all of the painful, I don't even need to go into those stories, and really, really found myself through the pain, through the darkness, through the contrast. And, you know, coming into this, it just, I don't know, it just felt like when the door was open, it was because I was actually ready to show up to this in a way that would, you know, be in the highest alignment for us both. And I feel like, you know, he had also been doing that work prior to us being together, where we were in a place where it was like, I feel like so much love for life. And I would be stoked to have, you know, the mirror of a beautiful relationship. And I'm also totally okay with being with me right now. So yeah, that's kind of my take on what I feel about it.
The way that I would try to explain it is to look at, there's a hardware match, right? And so the hardware match is important. It's not that the hardware match is necessary to match on all the hardware categories. So hardware categories would be, we both are athletic. We both like to do athletic things as part of our very nature. It's wired actually into us on a fundamental level. You know, we're both dancers, erotic beings by our very nature. We both have a zest and passion for life in these ways. We both have a poet's heart in these different ways. And we're like, these things are like these big categories that we actually aligned on. And if I look back at past relationships, there was, you know, some hardware hits and some hardware misses, but there wasn't ever a full hardware matchup. But I don't think that's actually fully necessary, right? In this case, to have a full hardware match where we both really, like, our bodies, our psyches really like light up at very similar things, that's really special to have that, because then you don't have to worry about any compromise on that level. So you talk about full fuck yes. You're like, all right, well, hardware, we're matched up perfectly.
Yeah.
In that way. So that was really beautiful. But I still think the same amount of passion of sacred union can happen, even if the hardware doesn't line up, if you're willing to use the software of all of the different techniques and technologies to go in and do the deeper work and actually successfully do the deeper work. I think about my partnership with actually both of our mutual best friends, Caitlin Howe. And Caitlin was my first fiance. And we didn't have a full hardware matchup. She's not so much of an athlete, but she's an amazing poet. So we really maxed out certain categories and we maxed out a lot of categories in that. And so hardware was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And we were willing to do work together. But there was parts of that were stuck for both of us, actually. And there was parts that were stuck in me. There was parts that were stuck in her. And we weren't actually willing or even capable or even knowledgeable enough to get to those other parts. So if we would have had the technology back then, I think we could have actually built our sacred union, Caitlin and I, together from that point. Like she's of that type of stuff that I think we could have done it. Now, this is the highest outcome that could have possibly been. But in this alternate parallel universe timeline, with a little bit more technology, with a little bit adjustments to the software, a few different mentors, a few different practices, a few different breakthroughs, I think we could have reached a similar powered sacred union, actually.
Yeah. I think that's, it's really important to talk through these nuances, because I do think that one of the sicknesses in our culture is people bailing on relationship, right? Or not even getting into them in the first place, or having a pie in the sky dream, right? Like you could almost say the pre-version of this is the Disney fairy tale, right? And I'm looking for the Disney fairy tale. And if I don't get the Disney fairy tale, then I'm just going to keep hunting the rest of my life, right? There's something very trans about what you two have found that transcends something about that conditioning we get that it has to be all perfect. And something that I wonder a lot about, I've definitely wondered in my own experiences, is in finding that level, right, of person, maybe before you've done so much work, is it natural then that your blockages to intimacy, your blockages to that level of union kick up and you have to work through them?
For sure.
Or is that us just telling ourselves a story so that we can stay in something that's kind of a maybe, like that sort of like how do you peer through that to know the difference?
This is so I've seen a lot of people who I would call spiritual masters, who are friends of mine. And I've seen it reflected actually in the men. So I can think of, two like dear brothers of mine who have taken it upon themselves to say that every problem every challenge in this relationship means that there's work that I can do to either accept, heal, become better, grow from the challenge that's being presented.
Yeah.
And this is their sadhana. This is their spiritual path.
Yeah.
And they're not ever quite really happy.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not that they're wrong. They can use every bit of it to like make them grow and be better. So it is helping their evolutionary path. And so you can't really say like, bro, like just get out of there, because they're like, no, but I'm learning so much. I'm growing so much based on this. But are you having fun though? And I think there's different ways to learn and there's different ways to grow and evolve. And I think one of the key things is like, can you keep it where it's alive, where you have a zest for life, where your eros is flowing, and that passion not only for each other, but for capital L, life itself is still there. Like that's important. And when you start to sacrifice that, that's where I think it may not be the right partnership, because it's not evoking the very best of you.
Yeah.
It's not evoking the fullness of who you are, the king or queen, to whom wholeness belongs.
Yeah, and I think, and I feel that in a true sacred union, you are a stand for, you're like a steward of your partner's greatest expression, right? So it's like if the conflict, like absolutely you can be in a space of learning about it, but are you really being like what is your place within it? You know, like, are you really being a stand for them to be in the full maximum expression of their eros, creativity, aliveness, thriving, excitement, joy? Or is it that, you know, your wounding is actually like bringing them down and contracting them into somewhere where you feel like they can meet you because you haven't done the work yet? Like it kind of feels like that to me in those particular situations. Is I think there's actually not a commitment to, like, you are my divine partner, and everything that I have to do to heal, to grow, to evolve, to transform so that you can be in your greatest radiance, like that is my North Star. Like that feels like it's a beacon of sacred union.
I think you also have to be mindful of, like, there's resentment and kind of wreckage that can come from being in this tragic stage. And sometimes that wreckage is difficult to overcome. Like it's hard to get back to zero state or carte blanche where everything is like fresh again when there's just shards of broken glass and these words that were said, these actions that were taken. Sometimes that can become a weight that is so difficult to actually overcome. So you have to be mindful of those moments. Like I think back to, you know, my partnership with Whitney, and I created enough wreckage there from the many times that I walked out the door that there was never going to be enough trust actually if we were going to try and make it work. And I love Whitney deeply, and I still do. You know, I mean, we're on our own separate paths, but I recognize that because of my own patterns and because of my in and out and my own stuff, like there was so much broken glass and so many shards and so much weight that had accumulated. Could it have been possible for us to transcend that? Possibly, but it would have taken an immense amount of work and some serious ritual magic to get to clean slate. Like we would have really had to, like, I don't know, like iboga initiations, up dancing for 5 days in the middle of, you know, the Bwiti jungle and, you know, visited by the jaguar priest and then offered this and then consecrated that daily. I don't know what we would have had to do to like create that fresh start.
Yeah.
Because you can accumulate a lot of different challenging trauma and baggage that I'm not saying it's not possible to overcome, but those rituals need to be created and invented so that people have a chance. Because a lot of times without the right software, without the right technology, you're creating a lot of wreckage. And if the technology of removing the wreckage isn't good enough, you're going to be trying to build a garden through a junkyard.
Right. Right. Because I think so many of us are encountering that of like, I think there's definitely two things going on that I've experienced and that I've also seen a lot of. And one is I'm just in a relationship that's not a full fuck yes, right? And then also there's the spiritual kind of dharma of, and sometimes that's the exact right place to be, right? Like you've even said, I wouldn't have been ready for the Vylana, forever the, if I hadn't done those other relationships, right? So like if I hadn't put myself through, gone all in, done that processing, done that life, right? So it's interesting to think of like, can we hold sacred union and also the value of these other relationships or partnerships that like without those, maybe I couldn't have gotten to a place where I was
like,
ready.
Can we honor the journey of our whole life and all of the steps that it took and be there presently for it, not comparing it to some idea and then subtly diminishing the experience because, you know, this is what it is. But I'll tell you, you know, I had paramours during my polyamorous relationship, and there was moments and capsules in time where we would just look into each other's eyes, and there's a lot of intense emotions that come, and we weren't perfect matches for each other. They weren't even my primary partner, but we would look into each other's eyes. And I remember multiple times, and I would just burst into tears of ecstasy. And would I trade any one of those moments? Hell no. Of course, I would have loved to be with Vylana. We could have more of those moments too. But the idea of me sacrificing one of those moments where I was looking into Savannah's eyes, for example, and just looking into her eyes and just crying.
Yeah.
Because I was like, God, life is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Life is so good right now. Like those are sparks that if you really liberate them, they become like gems. And these gems you can collect in your bag of memory. And then you're like, I wouldn't fucking trade that for anything. Even if the relationship turned sour, where it ended bad and ugly, but there was some moments you can liberate the sparks. And again, our teacher, Rabbi Gaffney, he talks about this, like liberate the sparks from those broken vessels, those broken things, and carry those with you, because that way, when you survey your life, you see all of these jewels and diamonds and they're untainted by whatever else came. That moment was pure and that moment was beautiful. And there's so many of those moments in my history. It's like, it's a paradox because of course I would have loved to have been with Vylana forever. And I think about 20-year-old Vylana. I was like, man, that little floozy, I would have loved to ravish her. Like I would have loved to get in there and mess her up. Actually, probably she wasn't a floozy at all. She was really studious, hardworking 20-year-old college student, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I was like, yeah, I would have loved to get in there. But then what about all of these other loves, these great loves that I've had that I've gotten to share myself with? Like, so it's the paradox of, yeah, of course. And no way would I ever trade anything that I've experienced. So, and that's, that's my story. Now I've had, for Vi, I think there's been a bit more trauma and then sparks in some of the relationship, but I'm sure those same sparks are there.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, we talked about this, like when we first got together, because it was like, how have we not always been together? Like, this is ridiculous. We should have always been together. And at the same time, like the gifts that came from the full arc of my journey, as painful and even at times devastating as it was the, it was the soil that nurtured the seeds of my art and the way that I could relate and deeply see others, right? If I just would have, been in this relationship all along and learned, brilliantly and expansively through love, like great, but I would have missed out on all those gifts that I had to be of service to others. And I think that was part of my own, soul calling, was to actually find myself in those kinds of experiences where I understood, the full spectrum of what it is to be in relationship, the most brutal, toxic, tension, hate sex, like, all like that whole world, to, coming into this one where everything feels like unimaginably beautiful. And I wouldn't change that because it's like, even knowing so deeply that contrast, it makes me appreciate and be so much more grateful for what I have now. I couldn't be as grateful. If it was always just this way, it would just be like, this is just what I know. But because my life was so drastically different for, my entire 32 years prior, my, probably 15 years in relationships, like I wouldn't really understand how deeply grateful I am for what this is. And so, that was, as I said, a conversation that we had a lot in the beginning, is like, I wouldn't change anything. This was the perfect timing. And I'm so grateful that I went through all of that because of how I know myself.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about Ecstasy, the legal kind. So this is an amazing supplement from our sexy supplement company, Mood. And when I formulated this with a team of all female scientists, I basically asked myself the question. I was like, if I had more clean energy and I felt more bliss and pleasure in my body on a regular basis, would I want to have more sex? And would I generally have a better life? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, are there natural ingredients in plants that can create that? Like a full body buzzy high and a clean energy activation? And I was like, yeah. And the female scientists were like, yeah, how did you think of this? And I was like, I want supplements that make me feel good. I want supplements that enhance my level of pleasure. I want supplements that make me want to have more sex. And that's really what this Ecstasy formulation is about. You can take it in capsule form, or you can take it in this drink mix powder, which is matcha flavored. And what it does is it addresses what's happening to so many of us, which is that we're going through mitochondrial depletion. Our energy levels are getting lower and lower and lower. And as we age, our mitochondria are actually less effective at creating energy through the ATP cycle. So what we've done is pack this formulation full of clean energy powerhouses, things like PQQ, CoQ10, and even maca that help your body be better at producing energy, and natural bliss activators, things like schizandra berry, ginseng, even rhodiola, and tribulus are in here. So you get this combination of clean energy and a body high together. It can reprogram your nervous system to be able to feel more pleasure and more energy on a regular basis. I love taking this combined with Sex Magic, one of our other products, before sex, before makeout sessions. And also I take this now like before marketing meetings, before I go hiking, before I work out, literally anytime I'm feeling too damn tired to be super creative or super pleasurable. And it is changing the way that I live my life. I actually couldn't live without this product anymore. I'm super excited for you to try it if you feel called. We've made a special discount code for listeners of this podcast. It's This Tantric Life 15, and you can use it at checkout over at shopmood.com. That's shopmood.com, MOOD. It'll give you 15% off your first order.
I'm curious if you feel like there were sort of key initiations, things that you realized, work that you did to go from, you've referenced it here, but I've also heard you talk about it in other places. Boyfriends who cheated, toxic experiences, betrayals, hate fucking. I know
that
there's a lot of women who
workshop.
are like, I've been through all of that.
Yeah.
How could I get to a place where I could be in sacred union with someone who can embody divine masculine? Like, what did you do to go from that pain and that distrust to being able to feel worthy of this?
Yeah. I mean, I was so caught up in that cycle of just, turning and burning the same relationship, over and over and over and over again. And ultimately really realized in my last one, like, I am the common denominator in all of these, right? Like, these are deeply, deeply painful. And yet I am the one who is the common denominator in all of them. So that is saying something about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, sadly, and I don't know that it needs to be this way for everybody, but I got to a point where it just got so bad and my nervous system literally could not take anymore, that I got to a rock bottom moment where I, out of desperation, just proclaimed, I cannot live my life like this anymore. I was so fed up with it. I just don't believe that this is the way that I'm supposed to experience love in this life. And I refuse to continue to do it. And just having that, kind of moment of reclamation and realization in a way, it set me on a different trajectory to really like look at things from a different perspective, where I started to be in an inquiry of like, what are actually my desires? What do I actually want from relationship? What are my needs? Because I never asked that. I would just be in relationship and I would be super passive. And, if we're going out to dinner and they're like, where do you want to go? I'd be like, whatever you want to go. I'm super easy. It's like not connected at all to my own desire. And also just didn't even feel the confidence to just ask for what I needed. Like in my last partnership, I realized at a point, like, I have a deep need to feel safe and I have a deep need for stability. And so my former partnership, we were in, somewhat trying to navigate like a 3-way dynamic where he began to have feelings for another woman. And we were trying to figure out how that was supposed to work. And in its own way, it was catastrophic and also beautiful, because I met myself at my deepest, darkest places. But I started to just feel like, no, I actually am worthy of asking to, for my needs to be safe, for my needs to be stable. And I also recognized as I started to go into that inquiry of what I actually needed was that I was never choosing myself. So in all of those relationships, the reflection was they didn't choose me. There was always another woman involved. And it was a mirror of my own internal relationship with myself because I wasn't choosing me. And that was a really big, like that, blew my mind because then that changed everything. So then what did I start to do? I started to choose myself. I started to focus on my sovereignty. I started to read the books, do the practices and the journaling and all the things to just really fully claim myself and my sovereignty and to be, in more self-love and approval and acceptance. And I got to a point where I felt so good with me that I felt like I came to a place where I was in the full clarification of my desire because I was still sort of in a dance with my former partner. We were in the dissolution of our relationship, but I finally had the clarity of what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And that was to feel safe. That was to feel stable. That was to feel like I was cherished by a man. That was to feel that, when I'm washing the dishes, and I say this story all the time, but it's just true. It seems really silly, but I always had this vision of just being, washing the dishes and being in the kitchen and my partner coming up behind me and just hugging me and just holding me, kissing me on the neck because he knows that touch is my love language. That level of simple things, but those were the kinds of moments that I wanted to experience. I wanted to deepen.
Doing that because he just wants to hold you and wants to kiss you. Not because he knows because that's not why I do it. I do it because I want to, because I can feel that space that we have in that moment, right? Because otherwise it's a strategy.
Yeah.
Anybody can have a strategy.
Yeah.
But what you really, I think if I was going to help you clarify your own desire, it's that I was allured to that.
Yeah.
I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
But to do that. If I walked by you, it couldn't be like, I am just drawn. I want to press my pelvis against your ass and I want to wrap my hands around you. I want to take a big sniff. Hopefully a little musk wafts into my nose and I give you a kiss right on the neck. And the kiss maybe just sends the slightest shiver of goosebumps up your spine and the smallest little trickle of wetness between your legs. That's what I want when I walk by you when you're doing the dishes, and I can't fucking help myself.
Thank you for that clarification. I definitely had, it's funny, I actually expressed it in that way because I remember having that conversation in a former relationship when I was in a moment of just why can't you just come up behind me and hug me when I'm washing the dishes? And they were like, well, why don't you ask me? And it was this big dramatic, I don't want to have to ask you, just in that kind of mental space. But thank you for clarifying that because that is really important. And then the last part about it was just feeling like I want to deepen into sexuality and intimacy. I see everything, all these models around me that are looking to expand it out into having creating novelty through expanding out into different partners and stuff like that. And I have no judgment of that. I'm sure that there are people who operate in that way and they're fucking killing it in life in polyamorous situations. But at that time with where my nervous system was, I really just wanted the depth of a fully committed relationship where I knew I was safe to be in my full feminine, to be fully open, to receive love, to be able to trust. That picture started to get painted when I started to really deeply tap into my own sovereignty and love for myself. And, coming from that place, what I felt was similar to what you had expressed in the beginning, this is what I want. And I know that I'm worthy of this. And I will not accept anything if it's not this. And that's the place that I was in. I'm not saying that's the place everybody gets to, but that's what I desired. And I threw my hands up to the universe and I said, you bring it to me in whatever way you see as fit. I don't care what he looks like. how much money he makes, what he does. You know, one of the other things was also like being, you know, on the same mission and that shared horizon as I had expressed. But I expressed all of those things, and then I put my hands up and I was like, I'm happy to be with myself. And if that means I'll just have lovers in my life and I'll never have that kind of a relationship, I will be so okay with me.
Meanwhile, I'm over there like, hey, hi, here I am, still here, hi. What's going on? Maybe me? I don't know. What do you think? I'm not so bad, right?
Wasn't timing
She's like,
yet.
dear universe,
Oh my God.
show me a sign. Bring me a vision of the one true love. And I'm like, hello?
Well,
Hello?
it's nice that you know that you two actually knew each other for a few years.
We did.
Yeah.
And you had inklings, but you weren't sure.
Uh-huh.
And you were sure before she knew.
Yes.
And that is helpful to know, right? Because sometimes I feel like people can hear of these love stories and it's easy to forget that every love story has to be unique. Just like every spiritual journey has to be unique. Because if you could cookie cutter it, then you wouldn't actually have to find the courage to live your own true love story.
For sure.
So it can be very easy to be like, oh, they must have met and just known right away. And it was like, no, actually,
it was
you not only
4
knew each
years.
but something that's given me real courage in some of my moments is the moment when you were on your like finally you ended up at the dance club and you like were there as I'm going to retell your story, tears streaming down your face, being like, Vylana, the Vylana is the one. And she might not choose me in this lifetime. And I might have to live with that level of broken heart. And like, if that's okay, like if that's the truth, then okay, so be it. Right. And to hold that level of courage. And I consider you to be one of the most like desirable, sexy men on the planet. So the fact that you had to find that level of love, that it might be a no, but you were still going to love and be in that truth anyways, rather than push it away. That's given me courage in some of my darker moments. And I think it's definitely a rallying cry for women everywhere, both of you, but I'll say women first, to be like, hey, like, I can be cheated on. I could have a string of fucking men who had a second option, you know, that were like, they were open to. I can have toxic sex. I can have like a history of like betrayal and actually not even spend that much time between the last time I was choosing betrayal and not being fully chosen. No. And I can end up with my own version of Aubrey Marcus, my own version of divine masculine. It's really beautiful for people to understand because I think the hardest thing of the heartbreak of the challenging relationships, the growth relationships, the almost there relationships is when you start to tell yourself a story that that's what relationship is and that's who you are. And then you collapse into that, right? And you weren't even, I mean, you were still in a situationship with Whitney, right? Like you were still feeling the magnetism to all of your old
Whitney,
patterns.
with other paramours too, you know, I was still in the full kind of single polyamorous kind of landscape.
Yeah. So the thing I'm kind of like teasing out that I feel is some sort of pattern for people that I really realized is, you know, people who finally get to this readiness or level of sacred union. One is like, they really do get super honest about, well, what is my prayer? Right. And like, if I've been in a series of relationships and the common denominator is me, what was my actual prayer? Right. Yeah. And for me, I had to be really honest with myself that like my prayer was, I'm so fucking terrified. I'm so terrified of abandonment. I'm so terrified of my father imprint. I'm so terrified of the masculine. I'm so terrified of there's something wrong with me. I'm so terrified of I'm not good enough that I will stay in relationships that feel reasonably safe, but they're not a full fuck yes, because I don't feel brave enough to endure the heartbreak of losing a full fuck yes. And that was my prayer. And so that's what I got to live, right? And so I think we get to a moment of changing our prayer, right? And for me, that looked like doing 4 days of darkness retreat that you inspired Blue into, which inspired me into it. And before I know it, I'm in the hills of Oregon. And the guy's like, the best thing about the darkness retreat is you can scream and scream and no one will save you. And he said it in this like empowering way where you can be like super primal and no one will interrupt you. And I was like, oh God, I'm in a cabin in the woods by myself. And if I scream, no one's coming to save me. All right, let's do this. And I just went into ceremony after ceremony after ceremony. It was spontaneous. I didn't plan to do it. I was sober, but it was like any Aya ceremony. puking, crying, purging, just like fully in it. And in that, I got the inspiration. It was like, process every relationship going back to your father and every romantic relationship you've ever had until you get to a combination of gratitude and forgiveness. And so I did that for 4 days straight. I had this like weird nest that I crawled up in. I had to crawl through like the holes in the wall or whatever. And there was like spider webs and they were all like apologetic. They were like, we're so sorry that you had a nest of spider webs. And I was like, it was perfect. And so I'm like up there like puking and crying and like days on end. And at the very end, I was like, okay, I was like, this is a funeral pyre. I burn every man in my life. I burn every relationship. I burn every attachment. I burn my whole fucking past. And my prayer to the universe is bring me the highest love and nothing less. Right. And you get clear on your prayer and own it. And you can tell the difference too. Before I was like, yeah, I want the highest love. And I was like, I'm lying. Like I'm lying to myself. I don't know if anyone else can hear it, but like, I know that I know that I'm not there yet. Right. And then it's a combination of, if I know I'm not actually there yet, am I willing to do the work? Am I willing to do the work relationally? Am I willing to do, for me, the important commitment is like, I will do whatever it takes. So I said that. And when I uncoupled after my 8.5-year partnership, I actually made that prayer to the universe. I was like, okay, I had the courage to do this because I believed in what you two had. I believed in my own version of it. I believed in triple gold. And I was like, I will do whatever it takes. And for me, I got my ass kicked. I got my ass kicked for 9 straight months, longer than that actually. But like it was hard. It was heavy. It was like every like dredge of trauma and unworthiness that was still left in me that was making me choose my own patterns would like purge through me in a series. And I had to remember my prayer. I was like, Layla, you said I'll do whatever it takes. Because there was a part of me that was like, I had friends who uncoupled and they like 2 weeks later touched someone's toe and got zapped with Kundalini and now they're in love and everyone's all falling in love and I'm over here having these deranged experiences. And and I was like, but Layla, you said you'd do whatever it took and you're holding to your prayer. And so that's where the trust comes in then, right? Because if you're not in this space where like true love, sacred union, triple gold is the match to me, how do I become a match to that? Like, and what work do I need to do so that I am a vibrational match to sacred union? And when I really looked inside of myself, I was like, honestly, with my like fucking chronic unworthiness, my daddy issues, the stories I still tell myself, the history of relationships that I've been in, which have been beautiful, but I can tell the difference between that and absolute sacred union. What is the work that I have to do? And people will say, well, what is the work to do? And there are, like, you're creating a program, right? I discuss as best I can in my work. And at the end of the day, it's still your life ceremony.
It's unique.
Of making the intention and saying, I'll do whatever it takes. Bring me the teacher, show me the way. People are always like, how did you find your worthiness? I'm like, I didn't know anyone to show me how to become worthy. So I just made that my prayer every morning and did all the work that showed up in front of me to become as worthy as possible, to get into that alignment. So that combination of I'm ready for that and I'm not lying to myself and I will do the work to be an actual match for it. Because as you're both saying, if you're not a match for it, you haven't done the work, you can destroy it.
Yeah.
You can kill it.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes to mind that I see when I kind of sense that something isn't going to work, it's when there's a gravitas mismatch also, and I think sometimes people will get in situations where the gravitas isn't actually a match. And this goes again to hardware, right? Like there's certain things where even if you're willing to do the work, somebody has a certain sense of a quality of gravitas, a quality of kind of density and experience. And I say density in the way of like a planet, being the gravity of the magnitude of who they are. And I think to really be in the sacred union like Vi and I have, that's something that's important to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not only willingness to do the work, but you both have to be blazing stars. And I think one of the things that makes it really work for Vi and I is there are different times where we just sit with mouth agape, looking at each other, do our thing, and like, wow,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the gravity match, you know,
Yeah.
or we can be at a party and both of us can switch on,
Yeah.
and it's like two twin stars,
Yeah.
they're like shining and pulsing. And if she's doing her sound healing and channeling from the heavens, and it's like, holy shit, I'm in the presence of an angel.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm channeling something from my own, you know, divine masculine codes coming out in poetry. And she's looking at me like, whoa, look at him go. There's something to that that's also important. So I think, yes, do all the work, and yes, do all of these things. And also you can expand your own gravitas by doing the work, by stacking on to your consciousness and expanding it and actually feeling what you're fully capable of. So that's part of what's doing the work. It's actually building your gravity. But as you build your gravity, you have to also find somebody that has equal gravity. And sometimes people have big gravity, but deep cracks and wounds. So you imagine like the gigantic meteor, let's say, but it's got a deep crack, a fissure running through. And there's lava that comes out and it sparks and spews sulfur at different times. It's like hella gravity. But man, there's some challenging shit there. But still, so that person then might get with somebody who can just doesn't have the gravity, but can handle the sulfuric gas that spews out. But you're like, yeah, but that's not really going to satisfy you. You got to heal your sulfuric gas spewing chasm, first of all, and then find somebody that can meet you in your gravity so that you can be wholemates together, not hop in my backpack and watch me do all of these things, right? Because then it gets there's not a real meeting of equals.
Yeah.
Well, and then too, I mean, just reflecting from my own experience, it was like, it felt like at times when I was coming into my own gravity, because my partner at the time didn't really perceive themselves in that way. So it was like anytime I would step into my gravity, they would try to contain it and bring it back down to where it felt like
pissed me off so
where
bad.
I was
when I would see that happen, I was like, oh, fucking dare you clip the wings of this firebird. I was like, oh.
And that feels like it's a very clear, I would say a very clear sign potentially that like maybe you can work towards sacred union, but if somebody is trying to dim your light when you feel like you're just exposing yourself in your freedom and your radiance, and they're like, I'm not okay with that. Let me squish it. That's like it feels like it's probably a mismatch to some degree.
And you said blazing stars, but not everyone's a blazing star. But I think that's what's important, right? Like, when I really started to understand myself as like a queen of the universe, I was like, oh, would I ever be satisfied with anything less than a king of the universe? You know?
Right.
But some people are nymphs in this lifetime. Like happily, truly, deeply nymph-like, right? And nymphs should be with nymphs.
And that's no worse.
Totally. In fact, you'd probably be miserable if you were like with someone who's constant, because I've been in relationships like that where I'm constantly trying to expand someone's worldview, someone's hunger, someone's way that they want to like eat the whole universe and fuck all of reality or be fucked by all of it, you know? And I'm like, wait. You should be with someone who wants to play the way you want to play, because you're going to be so happy together. And it's painful to have someone trying to expand your dharma if like you want to be super happy in the jungle, you know, making music, whatever it is that's like calling to your soul. And I think we've missed that sometimes, that level of power match is important.
I agree. And I think the key thing in talking about this is society has placed a codification of hierarchy based on blazing star is better than nymph in the forest. It's fucking not.
No.
They're just different roles.
Expressions.
It's like all of the different pieces on the chessboard are essential for the chess game to play. And they all go back in the box at the end of the game, right? We're all just playing different roles. And each role is equally important than another role, right? Like, and equally worthy and equally. So if you remove the hierarchy and then you remove this desire, like, I gotta be this, be what you are.
Yeah.
Like just be what you are.
Yeah.
And that's fucking beautiful.
Yes.
And find somebody who's being who they are, and then you're a match.
Yeah.
And maybe you're both really light on your feet and you touch the earth lightly and you play and you dance and you laugh and you do this little thing, and fucking amazing. Live that expression of the divine to its fullest.
And we know models like that. We have a couple of friends of ours who, you know, are medicine facilitators, and their life is just they're just in their work. They have no desire to, you know, be world known and have all these, they don't even have social media, but they're just in their dharma, and they meet each other on such a deep level, and they're happy to just be in Colombia, you know, doing their medicine work and serving the people that come to them. And like, they're so happy and they're so solid, and they're, you know, just being in the presence of them is also inspiring to us, because they're just in their own true expression, but it's equally as powerful as what our relationship is, because it's true.
Yeah.
And they're really deeply meeting each other.
And I think the truth is the most important thing at the end of the day. I think that's, like, everyone can say, like, is it a checklist? How do you know how do you know if you should stay or go? How do you know if you're ready for, you know, sacred union, or you need to still work your stuff out? And it's like, the thing I'm constantly telling people is like, that's the truth of your heart. And like, no one can tell you that. If you don't know what that is, like, starting to really be honest with yourself so you can hear that, because that's the only thing I think that gives you the kind of courage and ability to map these terrains that we're all mapping for ourselves. We're still figuring it all out.
Yeah. I mean, what the course is that we're going to be teaching, it's going to place yourself on an evolutionary path.
Yeah.
You don't know when that divine partnership might come, or you don't know if it's been right in front of your eyes the whole time. You don't know.
No.
You don't know, but you place yourself on the evolutionary path, and you continue to go and open yourself. And in the meantime, have incredible experiences. This is not about denying yourself. I actually fundamentally, like, there's some ideas that people have about, I'm waiting for that right person, and nobody but that exact right person I'm going to be with, and I'm holding out.
Yeah.
And like,
you gotta live.
Honestly though, like there's a lot, especially in like spiritual circles, there's like, until I clear myself of all attachments to all people, my king or queen will not show up. And like, I understand a little bit of that. I mean, you don't want to be unavailable, but also you need to be evolving.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that makes you evolve more than the mirror that's offered from somebody else. Like, I never stopped being with people the whole time I allured Vylana. I just stopped when Vylana was ready.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're ready? Okay. I love all of you that I've been seeing. I'm so sorry. But this is over now. It's been amazing. And now I'm with Vylana. And so I broke that rule entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, I had 3 or 4 people that I was seeing, and I was quite happy seeing all of them.
Yeah.
But then when Vylana came, I was like, no. But in the process, I was evolving the whole time and having amazing experiences.
Yeah.
So I think placing yourself on an evolutionary path without these preconceived magical notions, and just saying, no, I'm evolving and developing my own magnetism, clarifying my desire. And somewhere along this path, I may meet the person that is this full polar match, and we're going to have this type of Aubrey Vylana ride.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the best that we can all do.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's like that also just feels like having the discernment and the awareness that, like, maybe this is just a lover for a time and I'm really enjoying it and I'm learning a lot of myself, like, through the process. I don't think that they're my person, but it doesn't mean I'm going to rob myself of like the beautiful experiences that we can have. But like, again, it's like having that deep sense of self-awareness and just honesty with what is.
Yeah. I also think, one of the things that I am in humble surrender to, like, as we have this conversation, right, is as I went through that whole path and made my prayer, the person that I am with, like, I had never felt that level of alignment and fuck yes before in my life. I'd never actually ever looked into someone's eyes and been like, I know you in that way. And, you know, it's for me, when I hear your story, there's such a divine alignment to it, such an unfolding of perfection. And for us, it's been, you know, he has deep avoidant tendencies. It wasn't in perfect timeline alignment. And we've only been able to find a fuck yes in our souls. And the humility is like, I don't know if the deep ease and grace is the symbol of the sign that it's truly the match, or the fuck yes and it's a ceremony, you know?
You're on the path though.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the key thing is to be like, here we are, like on the path. And I think the only caveat to what I previously shared is if you're in a relationship that's fully constricting you from opening up to potentially meet other people, like if you have a very controlling agreement where you literally are in a cage and you can't meet people, you aren't going out, that will definitely limit your evolutionary options because it's a constrictive process. So keep yourself in an expansive process. And I know you, and I know that's the case. And even as committed as you are, and we haven't even discussed your level of commitment and agreement, all of that, whatever it is, I just know by your nature that you're open to the field, you're open to what is, and simultaneously committed. And so in the exploration of the full fuck yes, you're radically on the path, and there's no other place or timeline you could be than on the path in full exploration and in the questioning of, is this, and what is?
Well, as you said too, like you can find people that you are a full fuck yes. And then there's the whole other question of, can you translate it into the magnificence of what it can be? If you have that alignment, if you have the reciprocal alignment, if you have the soulmate alignment, if you have the whole alignment, which I love when you first said whole mates, I was really assuming that meant like you were like fluid bonded through like anal sex or something. Like I was like very like Aubrey to put whole mates at the top. Like you're gonna.
I knew to spell it with a W when I said it the first time.
Yeah, you got to say whole with a W because I was like, okay, now you're just like banging each other too. Great. It's an important part of sacred union.
I agree.
But in that like apprenticeship, I think there's always, there's a humility in apprenticing yourself to sacred union and true love that like you can never know what your own true love will look like. You don't actually know what that actual full unfolding is. I feel like it's kind of like spirituality as far as I can tell from this conversation, where you taste the flavor of it. You can taste the essence of it from other people, but then you have to do it yourself. And everyone's path is so different. Everyone's ceremony is so different. But it's like, can you be honest with yourself about the truth of that thing that you're seeking? And that feels so, so, so important. So important.
Indeed.
So final question before we wrap, which is, how does divine masculine show up? You've referenced it some in our talk so far, but how does it show up in your sacred union? How does your relationship to divine masculine allow you to continue to unfold the beauty of your container? And how does your divine masculine unfold the beauty of this container? Because I think our warps and our pains around this is often of both divine masculine and feminine, but we're going to talk about divine masculine right now, is what sabotages that true love. Like, is there a sadder thought in the universe than we all have the capacity for the deepest true love and the most sacred of unions? And it's our pain that stops us, right? So how does the opposite of your pain help you continuously birth this into existence with every breath?
I think Vylana reiterated several times what she needed and she didn't get: safety and security, and also to be cherished, but actually it was safety and security first. So as an emanation of the divine masculine. That's what you must provide. A sense where all of my jagged edges have been filed down to the best of my ability. And here I am, a mountain for you to rest on, a mountain that we can, that's going to be here. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And I'm the love that shines with no discretion about which part of you I shine on. I'm going to shine my love on the whole thing, right? So that's the field of safety and security that I provide. And then the thing that really gets it alive and full of, juicy intensity is that kind of, I really worship at the altar of the great goddess Shekinah through Vylana. So she becomes a stand-in, an embodiment of my relationship to the goddess at large. And so it aligns not only my partner, but it's an act of worship. Like if I want to go to worship, well, I could go, sit on my knees somewhere and imagine the hypothetical goddess Shekinah. And that's all that's important to do sometimes. Or I could bury my head between her legs and just go real slow and lick every part of her as an act of worshiping not only Vylana, but the goddess. And so that is, I think, to me, what a man can offer to a woman is the cherishing, the worshiping, the stability, the security, and also that, that boundary that says this is not okay. I love you, but this is not okay. This is a transgression. And we need to hold here and pause, but no need for the jagged edges, no need for the explosions. And of course, I still have a few sharp corners, some 90-degree angles that I'm taking the sandpaper to file down a little bit so that every little crevice of my psyche is smooth stone. So even if it's hard, it's smooth stone. And I think that's really what we can do as men to hold our women in the best way, and or men holding our other men, or however it is, if you're in the masculine polarity, to really smooth all the jagged edges, shine like the sun, and then show up to worship at the altar of your partner as a stand-in, as a surrogate for the divine, and actually not even a surrogate, actually ontologically identical with the divine, just through a particular
Fuck yes.
So beautiful. Yeah. And I really feel that for me in our relationship, as he expressed, like the mountain energy that just holds, and not just holds me in safety and stability where I feel like my nervous system can calm down and I can rest in something that I've never experienced in my life before this relationship, but also, can hold the full spectrum of my expression, which is not always, fully gracious and wonderful and loving and giddy and light, but can also hold me in my darker emotions, my frustration, my moodiness, my rage, my grief, and his ability to just hold in those places and let me express exactly as I need to. If I need to be dramatic, if I need to be childish, if I'm projecting onto him and we're having that kind of conflict, he's still the mountain that says no, there's a boundary here. We're not going to interact in that way. But to be able to feel the full breadth of the spectrum of what it is to be the feminine, which is it's Shakti energy. It's so much more than just being, graceful and elegant. It's all of it. And to feel like he gives me the permission to be all of it, and the approval that I give of myself to constantly be evolving into a greater and greater queen that can serve him in the ways that he truly needs. Having that anchor always. I know that that's going to be there no matter what it is that we face. I know that we can get through anything. I know that no matter what I am moving through, no matter what I am healing, like he holds that anchor. I mean, what that has opened up for me in my gifts, in my voice, in my artistry, in the way that I vision and see the world. I mean, it's completely transformed me as a woman. And I couldn't have done that without his energy. And also, you know, what I offer to him in the reciprocity of our sacred union, you know, really helps to fuel him to be the best and greatest man that he can be, because he knows if you know, he's going through it, if he has a night that he's just got so much going on and his mind is so busy and he can't sleep, he knows that I'm going to sing him to sleep and do a sound healing for him. Whatever it is, you know, if the world is shooting arrows at him, I am right by his side, helping him to process and move through everything, asking him the right questions to help him to see a perspective, being in the deep listening, you know, of my own feminine channel of creation and expansiveness. Like that anchor changes everything. I would not be the woman that I am today. And I guarantee I will continue to evolve at quantum speeds. Like for anybody who actually knows me or sees my platform and feels inspired by the art that I've put out or anything like that, 4 years ago, I was not this woman at all. And so, you know, I mean, it's a little difficult for me to put to words, but it's everything to feel that sense of just safety and truth and loyalty and honesty and reverence and the worship, to feel like I am so divine that this man will, you know, literally bow at my feet, that will worship my body, that will have me feeling so safe sexually that I literally will weep because I've never experienced this before in my life. Like what that can activate for a woman in her magic and in her expression. It's just next level. And I think that's the evolution of relationship.
All right. Well, tell us more about From Solo to Sacred Union and where people can get involved and join.
Yeah. So aubreymarcus.com/relationship. You're going to see all the info on the course. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to go week by week. And Vylana, we're going to have course material and videos, and we're going to lead you through this whole process. Again, identifying the path. And you'll find yourself somewhere on the path, but no matter where you are on the path, to have the perspective and the purview of the entire path is really important, because you can actually start working on things and understanding things, understanding where you're going, understanding where you've been, and bringing all of this into the present timeline, even if it's future and even if it's past. So you'll locate yourself on this timeline and then start to crystallize the path. And wherever you intersect with that person, or persons, because there's, you know, we're going to talk about relationship agreements and the possibility for that. I don't think it's only possible for sacred union to be a single dyad constellation. I believe in the possibility of possibility. And so I want to allow that to be open, but I want to talk about the quality of all of these different things. And we want to teach about the quality of that. We have some unconventional aspects to our monogamous sacred union. It's very much on one end of Tammy Nelson's spectrum of monogamy, right? Like we have, you know, our own way that we do things, and that's works for us, but we're not going to say that's supposed to be the way for anybody. So it's about giving enough of a spectrum, and then tools and practices, and then a community and access to Vylana and I, which is, you know, really unique for us to give our time and our energy to get on group calls and then ultimately cultivate events and really help bring people through this program and support them to try and find whatever it is that would light them up, but actually find not only looking ahead to the future, but realize that right where you are right now is somewhere on the path, and your whole life is just a path. And even if you have sacred union, it's still a path to an even more sacred union and to another way that you're able to influence the world. So the journey is life itself. And so the real celebration of where you are, not the entirely goal-oriented process, but like, let's fucking enjoy where we're at. Let's grow, let's evolve, let's fucking live and find the ecstasy in where we are and see if there's greater ecstasy to come. You know, one of our friends, my sister Waira, she says, you know, her saying is excelente y mejorando, which is like, it's excellent and getting better. You know, like it's excellent and getting better. And then that's it. Like find out the place where it is. And yeah, maybe it actually is really hard right now, but find the beauty in that by knowing how much you're learning, and then find the place where it can even get better. And because it can just keep getting better. Like it can keep getting better. And that's really the goal.
Yeah. And particularly too, just there's so many tools that we have learned from our teachers of how to move through moments of rupture where, you know, we went through a time where it was difficult. We would get in these very unique situations. It always happened around something super insignificant, typically around me being sarcastic. And we would get into this big rupture moment, and we're both so dramatic. So it just gets like really big, really fast. And it was a difficult thing to, you know, be in those moments. And we have found, you know, through our own process of learning how to move about those, like we've have these really enriching tools of like how you can move through it and have a map to do something differently. And they're different than anything I've heard anywhere else. So it's also, you know, our own work with how we move through those rupture moments, because they're going to come. It's part of the cycles.
If anybody saw the documentary Stutz on Netflix, it's about a psychiatrist named Phil Stutz, and he talks about the tools, and it's just little techniques that he has. And we have our own tools that we use. You know, there's like the bedrock tool when something's there, and there's all these different tools that we have. So we get a chance to share all that. And what is it in service of? Why are we doing this, right? Like, why are we doing it? For love, for she, for Era, so that this can flourish. And that is one of the things, the shared horizons that Vylana and I are partaking in. So hell yeah. Like hell yeah. Why wouldn't we do this? You know? This is so, we want all of us, like it's so much more fun when everybody can feel it. Like it's not like we're like, haha, we got a great relationship. These suckers, poor suckers out there. They're like, no, we're like, come on, like there's a way, and let's go find it together. Let's all be whole mates together and share this horizon.
I call it California monogamy, where you're like, we're really dedicated to each other. We just hook up with our hot friends together. Because like my puritanical ancestors would not call that monogamy, but it's some form. It's
I mean, I agree. California monogamy. It's like a California stop. It's where you kind of roll through it a little bit.
Totally. Well, have you heard of California sober?
No.
I'm just on a little LSD.
Oh my God.
So that's when I was like, I think it's California monogamy, when you're like, we roll together, but we'll hook up with our hot friend. Well, amazing. Thank you both for doing that. Thank you for making this program. It's been one of the things is like, I have only been able to get myself to where I'm at through my community, through you two being a lighthouse, through Annie and Eben, through Azria and B, through Rachel and Johan, you know, like looking at, talking to, being with couples at that level of love and that level of union, and being able to reflect to each other too, like the truth, because we get so much conditioning in society that is actually anti-true love. It's anti-sacred union. So you have to break through so much actual conditioning in order to be able to hold the magnificence of what's possible. And so the more of us teaching that, the more of us reminding people of that, the more I feel like they can actually stay on that path like you're talking about. It can be so easy out in default world to get off the path, because so many people teaching about love and relationship are not in sacred union. They aren't actually carrying the transmission of that level of love, that level of partnership. So it's easy to go out there on Instagram and get real distracted, or go down a rabbit hole, or not be able to see the true love that's right in front of you. And so thank you for doing that. I'm really, really excited for people who feel called to be able to join.
What's also unique too is I have a very strong male audience that resonates with me. And I've been putting out this full spectrum warrior poet. I probably cry on 60% of my fucking podcast. It's an unusually high rate, you know? So I'm 2 for 2 today with you, obviously. So that number might even be higher. But also, like, you know, people understand that I'm a fucking savage too. And I don't need the false humility to pretend that I'm not, of course.
Yeah.
You know, so they get it. And so men who are like that are drawn to it. So there's going to be a surprising number of men in this program, a lot of relationship courses and things.
That's the real
They
sell.
don't have a lot of men that come in, but there'll be a lot of men in the program too. And that's what happened in Fit for Service, which is another one of our groups. It's a beautiful community. There's a lot of men. You've been there. Yeah. You've seen the containers. A lot of men that are willing to just do it.
Really go in.
Like go all in and that'll be a part of this course too, which is cool. It's going to be cool to have that dynamic of a real blend of masculine and feminine in the course.
Sam is here. We can just let him in if you want to open the door because he's just going to keep. Sam is now here on set. Come, Sam. Hi, baby.
Oh, you sweetie.
Buddy. Right on time.
Okay.
Oh, cutie.
All right. Well, that's amazing. We all want a savage who cries while he's living his dharma. So that is a really strong.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love you both. Thank you so much. I'm now distracted by my giant Belgian Malinois.
Okay.
Yep.
He's a savage who cries.
Yeah.
He's got the codes.
He's also healing from his trauma, but he knows how to love.
You're a sweetie. I think one last thing that I would love to add about the why of why we're doing this is, you know, part of my path to actually coming into this relationship was I saw the first relationship that made me think something else was possible. And to experience, you know, the living transmission and the embodiment of that made my belief field expand into, oh, wow, this can actually happen. It's not just a unique thing. And I believe that I am worthy of that. And I truly believe that our whole life is a projection of our belief. Yeah. And so, you know, the more people that we can be that living transmission for, you know, the greater gift that it's really a great gift to us for people to believe.
Absolutely. It's easy to forget that out there in default world. It's easy to tell yourself the story that people who are living without that level of inspiration, that's all that's available. And having you two as a lighthouse, having all kinds of couples who have made their way there as a lighthouse is so essential because you have to have that level of belief to say, I'll do whatever it takes. Why would you do whatever it takes if it doesn't exist?
We love you.
We love you so much.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.
So the practice I want to share with you after that exquisite conversation is a practice that I think is the most powerful way for everyone to become their own version of Vylana and Aubrey, or me, or anybody else that you project greatness and self-expression and power and magic onto, and sexual fulfillment and erotic liberation, which is yours, right? Anything powerful and beautiful you see in us is actually yours. Anything that you saw in us during this whole podcast is yours. You only see it in us because it's you. So whatever you feel like you saw in me or Aubrey or Vylana in this episode, whatever greatness or erotic liberation or pleasure or partnership, that's yours, right? It's not ours. You're only feeling it because it's in you. And so the fastest way that I have seen for you to be erotically liberated, for you to have the highest partnership, for you to be so in your personal sexual and spiritual power is what I call a pleasure practice. And so I'm going to give you a 5-minute one. You can certainly do it for longer if you want, but 5 minutes is a great place to start. And what that means is you set a timer for 5 minutes, and instead of just masturbating like you normally do, you're going to touch yourself. You're going to stroke your pussy. You're going to stroke your cock. You're going to stroke your intersex genitals. And as you do that, you are going to do 3 different things. For 2 minutes, you're going to breathe. You're going to breathe into your pussy or your cock as you stroke, and just feel as you breathe. You're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And you are going to do a connected breath, no pause between inhale and exhale, or exhale and inhale. You're just inhaling and feeling and exhaling and feeling. And then for 2 minutes, as you touch yourself, you are going to be so intimate with your sensations, so intimate with your feelings. And that's what I mean by that, is to conscientiously leave your thinking, judging part of your nervous system and feel like, instead of you're in your head or even in your chest, you're going to feel like your beingness is deep in your sexual sensations. So whatever you're experiencing as you touch yourself, it's like you're intimate with that experience. You're letting yourself be touched by the experience rather than thinking about it. And for the last minute, as you touch yourself and maybe come into a peak state of pleasure or orgasm, you're going to say out loud to yourself, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And this reprograms your whole relationship to your erotic expression and even to your orgasm, to being held in a container of self-love. This pleasure practice is so simple, and yet it can change your whole life and get you into deep and anchored expression and ownership of the power of your eros, which then allows you to connect and magnetize a partner who wants to share that with you on that level, whether it's someone you're already with rising to meet you or finding that person out there in the world.
Thank you so much for being here, for listening to this Tantric Life. Thank you for making it to the end of a podcast. That is an accomplishment. And if you want to learn more, if you want practical tools and guidance in Tantra and sacred sexuality, then head on over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. You're probably like, email, what is this, 1996? Let me tell you, my emails are special. They're also so not safe for work that we send them on Sundays because they are chock full of some of the most licentious education that you are ever going to find. So I share in-depth tantric trainings, practical tools that you can incorporate into your life every single day. I also talk about really embarrassing and shocking moments from my own life as I guinea pig this entire tradition for myself in my own life. And if you want to stay connected, that is the way to stay connected. We also have incredible resources there. So if you want to learn sex magic, breath work, couple sex practices, tantric sexuality on the website, you can get those trainings for free if you head over and check it out, laylamartin.com. Finally, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. Don't miss a single reel. That's at the Layla Martin. You can also follow me on YouTube to make sure you don't miss any of these podcasts. That is Layla Martin. And thank you once again so much for being here. I can't wait to share more with you.